We are nothing. Sinister Narratives presents
The French Beauty and the Beast in Blue. The glamorous world of fashion had once been my sanctuary, the runway my stage, the camera my adoring audience. But like all fleeting dreams, reality had crashed through my carefully constructed facade. At 27, I was deemed too old, discarded like a forgotten relic, my career extinguished by the harsh light of a merciless industry. I found myself in Los Angeles, a city of bright lights and shattered dreams. The streets were a stark contrast to the glitz and glamour I had once known. The harsh reality of my situation weighed heavily on my shoulders. The echoes of my past success, a haunting reminder of what had slipped through my fingers. As days turned into weeks, desperation gnawed at me. I sent out countless resumes, attended auditions, and reached out to anyone who might be able to offer me a lifeline. But the doors remained firmly shut, the city's unforgiving grip refusing to release me from its clutches. And then, like a cruel twist of fate, he entered my life. Officer Mark Johnson, a seemingly kind and helpful face in a sea of strangers. He approached me one day as I walked down the street, his smile warm and reassuring. He claimed he had noticed me from afar, my beauty and grace catching his attention. At first, his attention was a welcome distraction from the abyss of my circumstances. He seemed genuinely interested in my story, offering his support and reassurance. He promised he would do whatever he could to help me navigate the challenges of this new chapter in my life. But as the days turned into weeks, his demeanor began to shift. His kind smile turned into a possessive smirk. His warm words masked a controlling undertone. He would show up unannounced, his presence becoming an invasive force that unsettled me. The red flags were there, his insistence on knowing my whereabouts, his questions about my interactions with others, his veiled threats that if I didn't comply with his wishes, my life could take a dangerous turn. And yet, I brushed off the unease, hoping that maybe I was overreacting. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he appeared at my doorstep, his eyes ablaze with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. He demanded I let him in, his tone growing aggressive and insistent. I hesitated, a mixture of fear and uncertainty swirling within me. "You owe me for all the help I've given you," he hissed, his voice dripping with venom. "Don't you dare think you can just walk away." The situation escalated, his temper flaring as his anger became palpable. I trembled in his presence, trapped between the walls of my own apartment, my heart racing as I realized the danger I was in. As weeks turned into months, his aggression grew, his presence a constant specter that haunted me day and night. The city that had once held the promise of new beginnings had transformed into a prison, the suffocating grip of Officer Johnson becoming inescapable. And then, one fateful night, as I walked down a dimly lit street, the shadows seemed to close in around me. I could feel his eyes on me, a chilling sensation that sent a shiver down my spine. I quickened my pace, my heart pounding as I turned a corner, hoping to escape his relentless pursuit. But as I glanced over my shoulder, my blood turned to ice. There he was, stalking me, his figure emerging from the shadows like a nightmarish specter. Panic surged through me, my mind racing for an escape as I realized I was trapped, a mouse in the clutches of a predatory cat. Before I could react, he lunged forward, his grip like a vice around my arm. I struggled, my cries for help drowned out by the darkness that surrounded us. His grip tightened, his fingers digging into my flesh as he dragged me toward a waiting vehicle. "Enough running," he growled, his voice a guttural snarl. "You're mine now." Terror consumed me as the reality of the situation crashed over me like a tidal wave. My attempts to break free were futile, his strength overpowering my desperation. As the car's door closed behind me, I felt a sense of hopelessness settle over me, a realization that this nightmare might be my final chapter. And so, as the vehicle sped into the night, I stared out into the darkness, my heart heavy with dread. The city lights blurred into a dizzying kaleidoscope, a cruel reminder of the world I had once known, the life that had been stolen from me. Officer Mark Johnson had become my tormentor, a predator who had stalked and trapped me in a nightmare of his own making. As we drove deeper into the unknown, the fear and uncertainty that gripped me intensified, a chilling reminder that some monsters wore a badge, and my battle for survival had only just begun. The vehicle hurtled through the night, my heart pounding like a frantic drumbeat against my chest. The darkness outside seemed to stretch on endlessly, a foreboding abyss that matched the turmoil within me. I was trapped, a prisoner of my own fear, with no idea where this harrowing journey would lead. As the car slowed and finally came to a stop, my mind raced for an opportunity to escape. My hands trembled as I felt around the confines of the vehicle, fingers brushing against something cold and metallic, a knife, the very tool of my own survival. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I seized the knife, my fingers curling around the hilt with a newfound determination. As the door swung open, I acted on instinct, lunging forward with a desperate force I didn't know I possessed. The blade found its target sinking deep into Officer Johnson's chest. His eyes widened in shock, a guttural gasp escaping his lips. Blood spilled from the wound, staining his uniform crimson as he stumbled backward. His grip on me loosened, and with a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength, I pushed him away, my breath ragged and labored. I fled into the night, my heart pounding like a drumbeat in my ears. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every corner of the city a potential hiding place for danger. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't afford to be caught by his dirty cop comrades, who would surely paint me as the villain in this twisted tale. Days turned into nights as I navigated the city's underbelly, always on the move, always watching my back. I became a ghost, a phantom that slipped through the cracks, my heart heavy with the weight of what I had done. I was wanted for murder, a fugitive in a city that had once promised me a new beginning. And then, like a malevolent shadow, his cop friends began their pursuit. Their tactics were ruthless, their actions fueled by a corrupt sense of justice. They manipulated the evidence, spun a narrative that painted me as the perpetrator, the cold-blooded murderer of one of their own. As the net closed in around me, I found myself cornered and desperate. Every alley I turned down, every street I walked, felt like a trap waiting to spring shut. I was a fugitive in a city that had once held promise, now a labyrinth of danger and deceit. In my darkest hour, as the night sky stretched overhead, I sought refuge in a place that had once offered solace, a Catholic cathedral. Its grandeur and sanctity provided a stark contrast to the chaos that had consumed my life. I slipped through the doors, my breath hitching as I hoped for sanctuary. But as I entered, a chill ran down my spine. The cathedral was filled with mourners, a congregation gathered for a somber occasion. My heart raced as I realized the truth. I had stumbled upon Officer Johnson's wake. The man I had killed, the one who had stalked and terrorized me, was being mourned by those who had known him. My pulse quickened as I scanned the room, my eyes landing on a woman whose grief was palpable, her tear-streaked face etched with pain. His wife. The weight of what I had done crashed down on me, a crushing realization that my actions had far-reaching consequences. I turned to leave, the weight of guilt and fear pressing against my chest. But just as I reached the door, her eyes met mine, a glimmer of recognition flickering within them. My heart pounded in my chest, my mind racing for an escape as her gaze locked onto mine, a chilling moment of connection that sent a shiver down my spine. As I fled from the cathedral, my mind raced with questions and uncertainties. The shadows of my past had transformed into something far more sinister, a web of deceit, danger, and despair that had ensnared me in its malevolent embrace. And so, as I disappeared into the night, the cathedral's towering spires disappearing behind me, I was left with a haunting truth. The chase was far from over. The dirty cop comrades were still on my trail. The city's shadows still whispered of danger, and the specter of Officer Johnson's death hung heavy in the air. The city had once promised me a new beginning, but now it was a labyrinth of chaos and treachery. The battle for survival had become a war against the very forces that sought to crush me. And as I disappeared into the night, a chilling realization settled over me. The shadows were no longer just a backdrop. They were my new reality, and they held secrets that could shatter everything I once knew. The city's relentless pursuit had driven me to the brink of desperation. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every corner a potential trap. I had become a hunted animal, my every move watched by the eyes of danger. But as the days turned into weeks, a new player emerged from the darkness, Officer Johnson's grieving widow. Her face, etched with sorrow and rage, haunted my nightmares. The once mourning woman had transformed into something else, a vengeful specter consumed by a thirst for retribution. She had glimpsed me in the cathedral, and now her obsession was singular, to see me pay for the death of her husband. Her connection to the dirty cops became evident as their actions grew more organized, their pursuit unrelenting. They combed through the city like predators on the hunt, their tactics ruthless and calculated. And at the helm of it all was Officer Johnson's widow, her grief twisted into a weapon of destruction. Desperation became my driving force as I fled, my every step laden with fear and uncertainty. With the border looming ahead, I knew I had to disappear into the night, to become a ghost once more, to escape the relentless pursuit that had become my reality. As I crossed the border into Mexico, a sense of relief washed over me. I had left behind the city's shadows, the malevolent forces that sought to destroy me. But even as I breathed a sigh of temporary respite, a cold realization settled in. The widow's obsession knew no bounds, and she would not be deterred by borders. The dusty roads of Mexico stretched before me, a stark contrast to the city's chaotic streets. I had a plan to change my identity, to erase any trace of the person I had once been. I sought refuge in a remote gas station, my heart pounding as I cut and dyed my hair, the scissors trembling in my grip. Fate favors the bold, I whispered to myself, my fingers trembling as I stared at my new reflection. French is close enough to Spanish, right? And so, with a heart full of uncertainty and a determination that bordered on desperation, I left the gas station, my identity transformed, my past left behind. But the widow's shadow loomed over me, a haunting reminder that the past was never truly erased. As I sought refuge in a Mexican hotel, a sense of unease settled over me. The city's treacherous shadows had followed me, morphing into something far more sinister. The widow's presence was like a phantom, her gaze heavy on my back as I moved through the dimly lit corridors. And then, in a chilling twist of fate, our paths converged once more. I turned a corner, and there she was, Officer Johnson's widow, her eyes ablaze with a chilling intensity. In her hand, a glint of steel, a knife. Fear gripped me, a cold realization that there was no escape from the relentless pursuit that had become my life. She stepped forward, her voice a venomous hiss. "You took everything from me," she spat, her grief transformed into a thirst for vengeance. Before I could react, the blade descended, pain searing through me as the world spun in a dizzying haze. Blood stained my clothes, my vision blurred as I struggled to remain standing. I clutched my stomach, my fingers slick with crimson, as the widow's rage continued to fuel her assault. With a final surge of strength, I managed to push her away, stumbling backward as I fought to catch my breath. The hotel's walls seemed to close in around me, the world spinning as I struggled to stay on my feet. The widow's presence was overpowering, her grief and rage twisting together into a maelstrom of violence. And as I backed away, my mind raced for an escape, a way to survive this harrowing encounter. But even as I turned to flee, her voice cut through the chaos, a chilling reminder that I was no longer in control of my own destiny. "You can't run forever," she hissed, her words a promise of unending pursuit. And so, as I fled into the night, pain radiating through my body, a chilling realization settled over me. The shadows of my past had transformed into something far more sinister. The city's malevolent forces had become a vengeful widow's pursuit, and her quest for retribution knew no bounds. As the world around me blurred into darkness, I was left with a haunting truth. The battle for survival was far from over, and the relentless pursuit that had become my reality would continue to shape my destiny in ways I could never have imagined. Consciousness returned to me like a distant echo, a haze of pain and confusion shrouding my senses. My vision cleared to reveal the sterile white of a hotel room, its familiarity sending a shiver down my spine. I tried to move, only to realize that I was bound, my wrists and ankles secured with unforgiving restraints. Panic surged through me as I struggled against my bonds, my breath ragged and labored. My gaze darted around the room, searching for an escape, a way out of this nightmare. But every corner seemed to hold me captive, a suffocating reminder that I was trapped once more. In my desperation, I prayed, the words escaping my lips in a fervent whisper. "Notre Père qui es aux cieux." My voice trembled as I continued to recite the Lord's Prayer in French, a desperate plea for salvation. With the hotel maid's help, I stumbled to my feet, pain radiating through me as I fought to remain standing. She whispered in Spanish, her words a promise of escape. We moved through the corridors with urgency, my hand clutching my side, my grip unyielding on the knife that had once been used against me. As we navigated the labyrinthine hotel, the widow's presence lingered in the air, a haunting reminder that danger was never far behind. My determination burned bright, fueled by a thirst for vengeance that matched her own. The knife in my hand became an extension of my will, a tool of survival that would lead me to victory or ruin. And then, in a chilling showdown, our paths converged once more. The widow stood before me, her eyes ablaze with rage, her blade glinting in the dim light. A battle of wills and steel ensued, a symphony of strikes and parries that echoed through the air. We danced on the precipice of destruction, a deadly waltz of violence and vengeance. The hotel room became a stage for our gruesome performance, a battleground for our bitter rivalry. Each blow I struck was met with equal force. Each wound I suffered a testament to the widow's determination. Splashes of crimson and scarlet swirled in the air, splattered on the walls and cream-colored carpet. She grazed my arms, and that was okay because she missed the skin of my neck, but I didn't miss hers. I stepped back, marveling at the masterpiece before me, watching as the blood climbed the back of her throat, gushing through her teeth. Our bodies became a canvas for each other's pain, the very essence of our conflict etched into every bruise and bleeding orifice. But even as I felt my strength wane, my palms slick with sweat, a fire burned within me. And then, with a final surge of strength, a blow landed true. A fatal wound that left the widow's gaze vacant, her blade slipping from her grasp. The weight of her collapsed onto mine. I could have bit her ear off, but I didn't. Instead, I whispered deliciously, "I didn't sleep with your husband, but I could have." She crumbled to the ground, a broken figure whose reign of terror had come to an end. Exhausted and battered, I staggered back, my heart pounding in my chest. The battle had left its mark on me, both physically and emotionally. I stood amidst the aftermath, the room bathed in the crimson hue of our collective violence. With the widow defeated, I felt a surge of bitter triumph, a hard-fought victory that had come at great cost. But there was one final act of catharsis that beckoned to me. The hotel's pool, its waters shimmering like a siren's call. I approached the edge, my body aching as I shed my blood-soaked clothes. I slipped below the surface, nude, more knife wounds than anything else. I felt a sense of renewal, a baptism of shadows that cleansed my spirit of the horrors I had endured. And as I emerged from the pool, my body battered and bruised, a new strength surged within me. I had conquered the darkness, emerged from the abyss with a newfound sense of purpose. The battle had been won, but the scars, both seen and unseen, would forever remind me of the price of survival. And so, as the moon hung high in the sky, its silver light casting a halo on the water's surface, I took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to face whatever new challenges awaited me on the other side. I got a job selling tacos on the street, and I looked good doing it.
Where do we go when we sleep? What are dreams but echoes of trauma that we register beneath the black stillness of nothing? We are nothing. Sinister Narratives presents
Abduction at Venice Beach. In the heart of Southern California, where the sun's warmth could both inspire dreams and fuel nightmares, lived Grace, an aspiring actress with dreams of fame that were as bright as the Hollywood lights. Yet, her path to stardom took an unexpected twist. A twist that connected her to the enigmatic and chilling world of alien abductions. Venice Beach was where it all began, a haze of smog and a tangle of bodies, where Grace strolled along the shoreline. The ocean breeze carried whispers of possibility, each footstep an echo of her hopes and ambitions. But that night, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, an unearthly light blossomed, briefly casting daybreak upon the dusk. Grace's heart raced as she shielded her eyes against the brilliance, her breath catching in her throat. The light vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving only shadows in its wake. A tremor ran through her, a cold whisper of the unknown brushing against her skin. Was it a dream? A trick of the light? She would have dismissed it if not for the sensation that lingered, a chill that clung to her like a haunting melody. News spread like wildfire, and Grace found herself thrust into a spotlight she hadn't anticipated. The tabloids painted her as a living mystery, a real-life enigma amidst the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. They wanted to hear her story, to unravel the puzzle of her connection to the beyond. And so Grace's fame was not for her acting, but for her peculiar and unsettling experiences. Reporters hounded her for interviews, skeptics branded her a charlatan, and believers saw her as a beacon for the truth. Amidst the chaos, Grace's dreams transformed. The spotlight that had once seemed inviting now felt oppressive, casting her life into a chilling shadow. Fame wasn't supposed to feel like this. A constant barrage of questions, prying eyes, and a gnawing sense of something lurking just beyond her understanding. One night, as the city's neon lights painted the streets with color, that eerie light returned. Grace stood at her window, her heart pounding as the light bathed her room in an ethereal glow. The walls seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy, and figures materialized, silhouettes of the unknown standing at the threshold of her reality. "We have chosen you, Grace." Their voices resonated within her mind, each word a ripple in the fabric of her thoughts. Grace's voice quivered as she asked, "Chosen for what?" "To bear witness, to bridge the divide between worlds." They answered, their words a symphony of echoes that resonated in her very soul. In their presence, Grace felt a surreal blend of fear and fascination. The walls between human and alien seemed to blur, and she became a vessel, a conduit for something far greater than herself. Their gaze felt like a probing touch, delving into the depths of her being, unraveling secrets and truths. Time ceased its march as the encounter unfurled, a dance between human and cosmic entities. Yet just as abruptly as it began, it ended. The figures faded, leaving only a haunting echo in Grace's mind, a promise of revelations beyond her comprehension. But the echo lingered, a siren's call that beckoned her to the edge of sanity. Days merged into nights as obsession consumed her. She locked herself in her apartment, filling the walls with diagrams, star charts, and cryptic notes. The tabloids reveled in her descent into madness, branding her as a puppet manipulated by her own delusions. And then, one moonless night, Grace disappeared. The tabloids churned out theories, abduction, escape, or something even more sinister. But the truth remained elusive, known only to the stars that had borne witness. In her final moments, Grace's mind transcended earthly boundaries. She saw the tapestry of the universe, threads of existence weaving together into a cosmic masterpiece. She glimpsed the enigmatic being's intentions, and the revelation shattered her human mind. As her body vanished from the world, her consciousness soared among the stars, untethered and free. The world moved on, the tabloids finding new tales to spin. Hollywood's lights continued to shine, and the skies above Venice Beach remained silent witnesses to Grace's legacy. A legacy of a woman who had brushed against the cosmic unknown, a life caught between ambition and enigma. For those who dared to look past the headlines, Grace's story became a haunting reminder of humanity's pursuit of the extraordinary, of the sacrifices made to peer beyond the veil of existence. As the nights deepened and the...
Where do we go when we sleep? What are dreams but echoes of trauma that we register beneath the black stillness of nothing? We are nothing. Sinister Narratives presents.
Instamodel stalked to death. The glittering lights of Los Angeles had always held a certain allure, a promise of fame and fortune that seemed to beckon to those who dared to dream. I was one of the lucky ones, a social media influencer with a following that numbered in the millions. My life had become a whirlwind of photo shoots, brand collaborations, and glamorous parties, each moment carefully curated for my adoring fans. But beneath the veneer of perfection, a shadow had begun to creep into my world. It started innocuously enough, a lingering gaze from a stranger, a message from an unfamiliar account. I brushed off the unease, chalking it up to the price of fame, until the night I found myself on the brink of drowning in a rich man's pool. The party had been a lavish affair, a celebration of opulence that seemed to know no bounds. As I mingled with the elite, I felt a prickling sensation on the back of my neck, a sense of being watched. Ignoring the discomfort, I joined a group of revelers at the poolside, laughter and music filling the air. But then, the ground seemed to shift beneath me. One moment I was sipping champagne, and the next, I was submerged in the icy water. Panic clawed at my chest as I struggled to find my bearings, my lungs burning as I fought against the depths. The world around me blurred, and just as I felt my strength waning, strong arms pulled me to safety. Gasping for air, I turned to my savior, a man whose eyes held a mixture of concern and familiarity. He introduced himself as Vincent, a friend of the host. As he handed me a towel, a shiver ran down my spine. There was something about his gaze, a depth that seemed to pierce through the facade I had carefully constructed. Weeks passed, and the unease lingered, a constant whisper at the edge of my consciousness. And then, one fateful night, the shadow materialized into something far more tangible. As I left a trendy nightclub, I found myself surrounded by a group of menacing figures, their eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized I had stumbled into the midst of a gang altercation. Instinct took over as I ducked behind a car, the sound of gunshots ringing in my ears. Panic surged through me, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I waited for the chaos to subside. When the coast was clear, I emerged from my hiding spot, my breath ragged and pulse racing. The encounter left me shaken, but it also ignited a newfound determination. I was no longer content to be a pawn in someone else's game. With the help of a private investigator, I began to dig into the unsettling messages and encounters that had plagued me. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, the stranger's lingering gaze, the ominous messages that seemed to anticipate my every move. The stalker had become a puppeteer, orchestrating a sinister dance that led me deeper into the shadows. It was a cat-and-mouse game, each step I took revealing a new layer of his obsession. But as I delved deeper, I also discovered a strength within myself that I hadn't known existed. No longer content to be a victim, I was determined to unravel the mystery and bring him to justice. The final act unfolded on a stormy night, rain battering against the windows of my upscale apartment. I had received another message, a chilling taunt that left no doubt of his presence. My heart raced as I realized he was closer than I had ever imagined. As I turned to leave, a figure emerged from the darkness. Vincent. His once familiar face was contorted with a mixture of obsession and madness. He confessed to his twisted infatuation, his obsession with me driving him to commit unspeakable acts. He had orchestrated the near drowning, the gang encounter, all in an attempt to draw me closer to him. Fear and anger surged through me as he advanced, his words a chilling symphony of delusion and malice. But as he lunged, I fought back with a determination born from survival. It was a battle of wills, a struggle between a victim and her tormentor. The room became a battleground, shattered glass and overturned furniture a testament to our clash. And then, in a desperate bid for escape, I managed to push him back, the force of the impact sending him crashing through the window and onto the rain-soaked street below. For a moment, I thought it was over, but as I peered out the shattered window, a sense of dread settled over me. He was gone, vanished into the night like a phantom, and I knew that he would return, that his obsession was far from extinguished. Days turned into weeks, and the shadow of Vincent's presence continued to loom over me. I took precautions, hired security, and remained vigilant. But no matter how hard I tried to move on, the fear persisted, a constant reminder of the darkness that had infiltrated my life. Then, one night as I returned home, I felt it, the unmistakable sensation of being watched. My heart raced as I stepped into the dimly lit apartment, a sense of dread settling over me. And then, from the shadows, he emerged, Vincent, his eyes gleaming with a twisted mixture of desire and madness. My screams echoed through the air as he lunged, his grip like a vice around my throat. I fought with every ounce of strength I had left, desperate to escape the clutches of my tormentor. But his grip tightened, his fingers digging into my flesh as he pressed me against the wall. As darkness threatened to claim me, a desperate thought crossed my mind. With a final surge of energy, I reached for the lamp on the nearby table and swung it with all my might. The glass shattered against his head, and in the moment of his stunned hesitation, I broke free from his grasp. But the victory was short-lived, for he recovered quickly, his eyes ablaze with a sinister determination. It was a battle of survival, a clash between predator and prey. I fought with a ferocity born from desperation, the shadows of my apartment a silent witness to our struggle. And then, with a final burst of strength, I managed to push him back, his body crashing into the shattered remains of the window. Rain poured into the room, a cold and unforgiving torrent that seemed to mirror the chaos of our confrontation. For a moment, he teetered on the edge, his fingers clutching onto the window frame. And then, with a haunting smile, he let go, disappearing into the night like a phantom. Exhausted and battered, I sank to the floor, rain mingling with tears on my cheeks. The nightmare had reached its climax, but I knew that the darkness would continue to haunt me. Vincent was still out there, a shadow that refused to be banished. As the rain continued to fall, a bitter taste of bitter victory settled over me. The battle had been won, but the war against my stalker was far from over. And as I stared out into the stormy night, I knew that the shadows would continue to dance, a haunting reminder of the horrors that had invaded my life. Months passed, and the memory of my harrowing ordeal began to fade. The scars, both visible and invisible, remained, a constant reminder of the darkness that had infiltrated my life. I threw myself into my work, determined to regain a sense of normalcy and control. It was at a lavish wedding dinner party that fate twisted its cruel fingers once more. The ballroom was a sea of elegance, laughter, and clinking glasses. I mingled, forced smiles masking the unease that still lingered within me. The night was meant to be a celebration, a joyous occasion, but in my heart I knew that the shadows had a tendency to resurface. As I stood by the grand staircase, a chill ran down my spine, a sensation of being watched settling over me like a heavy shroud. I turned, and there he was. Vincent, his presence a nightmarish specter that had returned to haunt me. My breath caught in my throat as our eyes met, a sickening mixture of recognition and dread passing between us. The mask of civility he wore was a mockery, a veneer that barely concealed the madness that lurked beneath. "Hello, dear," he purred, his voice like a serpent's hiss. "Long time no see." A wave of nausea washed over me as memories of our violent struggle flooded back. The shattered glass, the rain-soaked chaos, the desperation to escape. But here he stood, as if he were an invited guest to this joyful event. "Vincent," I managed to choke out, my voice trembling. "What are you doing here?" He smirked, his lips curling into a sinister smile. "Oh, I couldn't resist the chance to see you again, my dear. It's been far too long." A cold sweat broke out on my forehead as he approached, his gaze unrelenting. Panic clawed at my chest as I realized that I was trapped, surrounded by oblivious partygoers who had no idea of the nightmare that stood before me. I backed away, my heart racing, the memory of his hands around my throat etched into my mind. "Stay away from me," I hissed through clenched teeth. His laughter was a haunting melody that seemed to echo in the air, a chilling reminder of the darkness that had consumed him. "Oh, my dear, you can't escape me that easily. We have unfinished business." With every step he took, I retreated, my mind racing for an escape. But as the crowd swirled around us, I realized that I was trapped in a macabre dance, a deadly waltz with the devil himself. And then, as if by some twisted fate, the lights flickered and dimmed, plunging the ballroom into a momentary darkness. Panic surged through me, and when the lights returned, he was gone, vanished into thin air like a phantom. My heart pounded in my chest as I scanned the room, my eyes wide with fear. Had he truly disappeared, or was he still lurking in the shadows, waiting for the opportune moment to strike? As the evening wore on, I found myself on edge, my nerves frayed. Every shadow seemed to hold a hidden menace, every glance from a stranger a potential threat. I knew that I couldn't let him continue to control my life, that I had to find a way to escape his clutches once and for all. But just as I was beginning to consider slipping away from the party, a group of police officers entered the ballroom. They were accompanied by concerned murmurs and puzzled glances from the guests. "Excuse me, ma'am," one of the officers said, approaching me with a wary expression. "Are you okay?" I nodded, my voice catching in my throat as I recounted the events of the evening, Vincent's reappearance, his ominous words, the feeling of being stalked once more. But the officers exchanged uncertain glances, their expressions a mixture of sympathy and skepticism. "Ma'am, we've been keeping an eye on you throughout the evening," another officer explained gently. "But there's been no sign of anyone matching the description you've given us." My heart sank, a sickening realization settling over me. Had Vincent truly been a phantom, a figment of my imagination? Had the trauma of our previous encounters driven me to the brink of madness? As the officers continued to question me, I felt a growing sense of frustration and desperation. How could they not see the danger that lurked just beneath the surface? How could they dismiss my fears as the product of a troubled mind? In the end, they assured me that they would continue to monitor the situation, that they would keep an eye out for any suspicious activity. But as they left, I was left with a gnawing sense of dread, a feeling that the shadows would continue to haunt me, that Vincent's presence would remain a nightmarish specter that refused to be banished. And so, as I stood alone in the ballroom, the echoes of the evening's events reverberating in my mind, I realized that I was trapped in a twisted dance with shadows. The police may think me a crazy woman, the guests may return to their celebrations, but I knew the truth. Vincent was real, and the darkness he embodied would continue to haunt me. A chilling reminder that some nightmares are all too real. The police's dismissive attitude only fueled my determination to take matters into my own hands. I couldn't let Vincent's malevolent presence continue to haunt me, to threaten the lives of others. And so, I turned to the one person who might be able to help me. A private investigator named Marcus, known for his relentless pursuit of the truth. I met with Marcus in a dimly lit cafe, the weight of my fear and desperation heavy in the air. I recounted every detail of my chilling encounters with Vincent, the near drowning, the gang violence, and his sinister reappearance at the wedding. Marcus listened intently, his eyes narrowing with a mixture of concern and determination. "This man, Vincent, he's playing a dangerous game," Marcus said, his voice low and gravely. "But we can't let fear dictate our actions. We need to expose him for what he truly is." With Marcus's help, I delved into the depths of the internet, scouring social media platforms for any traces of Vincent's presence. What we discovered sent shivers down my spine, a trail of influencers who had disappeared without a trace, their online presence abruptly severed. It was as if Vincent had become a digital wraith, leaving behind only echoes of his sinister deeds. As we continued to dig, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Vincent wasn't just a stalker, he was something far more malevolent. He was a collector of souls, a twisted predator who donned the skin of his victims under the cover of the moonlight. My heart raced as I realized the extent of his depravity. He wasn't content with mere terror. He sought to obliterate the very essence of those he targeted, to become them in the most horrifying way imaginable. Armed with this knowledge, Marcus and I embarked on a relentless pursuit of Vincent. We tracked his movements, piecing together a pattern that seemed to defy all reason. He targeted influencers, those who had achieved a level of fame that had become intoxicating to him. One night, as the moon hung low in the sky, we finally cornered him in an abandoned warehouse. His lair was a grotesque collage of human skin, the walls adorned with the remains of his victims. My stomach churned at the sight, but I refused to let the horror paralyze me. Vincent's eyes gleamed with a twisted pleasure as he stepped forward, his voice dripping with malevolence. "Ah, my dear, you've come to witness my masterpiece." But I was no longer the terrified victim he had once pursued. I was a survivor, a warrior who had faced the depths of darkness and emerged stronger. With a steady hand, I drew a gleaming knife from my coat, my fingers wrapping around the hilt with a sense of purpose. "You won't terrorize anyone else," I declared, my voice resolute. Marcus and I charged forward, a fierce determination propelling us into the heart of the darkness. The ensuing struggle was brutal, a collision of wills and strength. But as Vincent's grip faltered, I seized the opportunity, my knife slicing through the air and finding its mark, his throat. Blood spilled like a grotesque waterfall, staining the floor as Vincent's eyes widened in shock and horror. His movements grew sluggish, his breath ragged as he stumbled backward, his hands futilely clutching at his throat. With a final gurgle, Vincent collapsed to the ground, his malevolent reign of terror finally brought to an end. The room was heavy with the stench of blood, the echoes of the struggle reverberating in the air. I stood there panting and covered in gore, a mixture of relief and disbelief flooding through me. As Marcus and I stepped back from the scene of our victory, the weight of the night's events settled over us. The darkness that had once plagued my existence had been vanquished, but at a cost. The scars, both physical and emotional, would remain, a haunting reminder of the horrors that I had faced. And yet, even as I stood in the aftermath of the battle, a chilling thought crossed my mind. Vincent had been a predator, a monster who had stalked and terrorized. But what if he hadn't acted alone? What if others like him lurked in the shadows, waiting for their chance to strike? As I looked out into the night, a shiver ran down my spine. The battle against the darkness was far from over. It was merely the beginning of a war against the malevolent forces that sought to devour the light. In the days that followed, I helped Marcus piece together the evidence of Vincent's crimes, ensuring that justice would be served. But even as Vincent's reign of terror came to an end, the scars he had left behind continued to haunt me, a chilling reminder that evil could take on many forms. And as I stared into the abyss of the night, A sense of unease settled over me. The shadows still danced, and the battle against the darkness was far from over.
Where do we go when we sleep? What are dreams but echoes of trauma that we register beneath the black stillness of nothing? We are nothing. Sinister Narratives presents
L.A. Maids and murders. The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows on the dimly lit streets of Los Angeles. My heart raced as I darted through the alleyways, desperate to escape the nightmare that had unfolded before me. My name is Isabella Sanchez, a well-known actress in my home country of Mexico, but a total nobody in Hollywood. Just another beautiful face amongst a crowd of dreamers, and I had just witnessed a murder that would forever haunt my dreams. The night had started innocently enough, a glamorous party, flashing lights and flowing champagne, but then I had stumbled upon a scene that shattered the facade of luxury and privilege. A man lay lifeless on the floor, blood pooling around him, the air thick with the stench of death. My breath caught in my throat, and I turned to flee, only to be seized by a strong hand that covered my mouth. My heart pounded as I was dragged into a nearby alley, the cool breeze doing nothing to quell the sweat that beaded on my forehead. "Keep quiet," he hissed, his grip like a vice on my arm. "You saw me, didn't you?" I nodded, unable to tear my eyes away from the man's cold gaze. He was the murderer, and I was the lone witness to his monstrous act. "Listen carefully," he growled, his voice dripping with malice. "You're going back in there, and you're going to pretend to be a maid. Understand?" Fear tightened its grip on me as I nodded again, my voice stolen by the horror of the situation. Back inside the opulent mansion, I donned a maid's uniform and tried to blend in, my heart racing with every step I took. I avoided eye contact with everyone, the weight of the secret I carried pressing down on me. But I wasn't as inconspicuous as I had hoped. The murderer's gaze found me, his lips curling into a sinister smile. My breath caught in my throat as he mouthed the words, "You can't escape." As the night wore on, I watched the other guests dance and laugh, their obliviousness a stark contrast to the darkness that clung to me. I knew that I was running out of time, that the murderer's threat was not an idle one. Hours later, as the party wound down, I found myself alone in the mansion's dimly lit hallway. I thought I had managed to slip away unnoticed, but the murderer's cold voice shattered that illusion. "Well, well, well," he sneered, stepping out of the shadows. "You thought you could escape, didn't you?" My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at him, his presence a suffocating reminder of the danger I was in. "You're going to clean up the mess you saw," he spat, his eyes burning with a malevolent intensity. "And if you even think about going to the police, I'll make sure you pay." With trembling hands, I followed him back to the scene of the crime, the room still stained with blood. My breath came in ragged gasps as I surveyed the horrifying tableau. "Clean it up," he ordered, his voice dripping with sadistic glee. I sank to my knees, my hands shaking as I picked up a cloth and began to scrub at the bloodstains. Tears welled in my eyes as I scrubbed, the weight of the horror I was erasing pressing down on me. "Good," he sneered. "Remember, I'm always watching." As he turned to leave, a surge of desperation coursed through me. I seized a nearby bottle of cleaning solution and hurled it at him with all the strength I could muster. The bottle shattered against his chest, the liquid splashing across his face. He howled in pain, stumbling back and clutching at his eyes. My heart raced as I seized the moment, scrambling to my feet and bolting for the door. The night air was cool on my skin as I sprinted through the streets, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I couldn't stop the tears that streamed down my face. Tears of fear, of anger, of sorrow. Days turned into weeks as I lived in constant fear, always looking over my shoulder, always wondering if he was watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. And then, one fateful night, I found myself cornered in a dark alley, his presence a chilling reminder that I was trapped in a never-ending nightmare. "You thought you could escape me?" he snarled, his voice dripping with malice. Tears blurred my vision as I stared at him, my heart heavy with defeat. I told you you can't run from me, he hissed, raising a gleaming knife. And as the blade glinted in the moonlight, I realized that there was no escape from the horror that had consumed my life. The story would end here, in this dark alley, with a tragic and inevitable conclusion. I screamed my last scream.
Where do we go when we sleep? What are dreams but echoes of trauma that we register beneath the black stillness of nothing? We are nothing. Sinister Narratives presents, in a labyrinth of glass, if I die before I wake, let my soul find its refuge, and may my tormented spirit rest in peace. These were the words that echoed in my mind as I embarked on a journey through the darkest corners of the human psyche, a journey that would test the limits of my courage and sanity. It all began on a fateful night, when an old and weathered book came into my possession. Its pages were yellowed and brittle, its cover adorned with an intricate symbol that seemed to pulsate with an otherworldly energy. The book had been passed down through generations, each family member reluctant to keep it for long. It was said to hold secrets that no mortal should know, stories of the supernatural and the unknown. Curiosity gnawed at me, and against my better judgment, I opened the book to its first page. The words that greeted me were cryptic and unsettling, a mixture of languages I couldn't comprehend. As my eyes lingered on the pages, a sensation of cold dread crept over me, as though a veil had been lifted, revealing a world beyond our own. That night, my dreams were plagued by visions of shadowy figures and ethereal whispers. I awoke in a cold sweat, my heart racing with an inexplicable fear. The book lay on my bedside table, its pages seemingly alive with an unnatural glow. I knew then that I had awoken something ancient and malevolent. Days turned into nights, and I found myself consumed by an insatiable curiosity. The words in the book began to take form in my mind, as if they were etched onto the very fabric of my thoughts. I became obsessed with deciphering its secrets, desperate to uncover the truth that lay hidden within its pages. As I delved deeper into the book's contents, I stumbled upon an incantation, a spell that promised to grant the knowledge of the beyond to anyone who dared recite it. The temptation was too strong to resist. Ignoring the warnings that echoed in my mind, I spoke the incantation aloud, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The moment the words left my lips, the room plunged into darkness, and a chill swept through the air. A presence materialized before me, its form shifting and indistinct. A voice, both haunting and seductive, whispered promises of forbidden knowledge and power beyond imagination. "If you seek the truth, you must prove your devotion," the voice hissed, its words curling around my mind like tendrils of smoke. "A sacrifice must be made, a life for a glimpse into the abyss." My heart raced, and the weight of my decision bore down on me. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but the allure of the unknown beckoned me forward. As I contemplated my choices, the voice grew more insistent, its words worming their way into my very soul. Days turned into nights once more, and I found myself wandering through the city streets, eyes vacant and mind clouded. I was no longer in control of my actions. An invisible force guided me, urging me to seek out a victim. The darkness within me surged to the surface, a maelstrom of conflicting emotions and desires. And then it happened, a fateful encounter with a stranger in a desolate alley. The knife in my hand gleamed in the moonlight, its blade poised to strike. I hesitated, the weight of my actions crashing down upon me, but the voice in my mind grew louder, drowning out my doubts and fears. With a swift, decisive motion, I plunged the knife into the stranger's chest. His eyes widened in shock and disbelief, and as the life drained from his body, I felt an indescribable rush, a twisted blend of exhilaration and horror. The deed was done, and I was forever bound to the darkness that had consumed me. As I stood there, bloodied knife in hand, the presence reappeared before me, its form taking on a more tangible shape. It grinned, a sinister smile that sent shivers down my spine. "You have proven your loyalty," it murmured, its voice dripping with satisfaction. "Prepare to witness the secrets of the universe." the world around me warped and twisted, reality itself unraveling as I was transported to a realm beyond comprehension. Visions of cosmic horrors and ancient entities flashed before my eyes, their incomprehensible forms etching themselves into my mind. I saw the true nature of existence, a tapestry of darkness and light, of creation and destruction. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the vision ceased, leaving me gasping for breath. I was back in my room, the book still open before me. The voice was gone, but its echoes lingered in my mind. I had glimpsed the abyss, and the abyss had gazed back into me. The weight of my actions and the knowledge I had gained bore down on me, an insurmountable burden that threatened to crush my sanity. The truth was more horrifying than I could have ever imagined, a truth that defied the boundaries of human understanding. And so, I write this account as a warning to those who may follow in my footsteps. If I die before I wake, let my story serve as a cautionary tale of the dangers that lie in seeking the unknown, of the darkness that can consume even the strongest of souls. May my words reach you, and may you heed their message. For once the door to the abyss is opened, it can never truly be closed again. Where do we go when we sleep? What are dreams but echoes of trauma that we register beneath the black stillness of nothing? We are nothing. Sinister Narratives presents.
In the heart of Tlacopan, my elder brother Ixtaca and I stood at the edge of No Tomorrow, a cliff overseeing the chinampas and dense forests of our city-state. Ixtaca's sinewy strength was known to all, a force to be reckoned with. He had our father's strong face and our mother's gentle eyes. Beside him, I looked like a stranger, just an acquaintance. I didn't resemble our mother or father, nor any ancestor within recent memory. The elders said that I exuded a nefarious intensity, my mind sharp and calculating, but really I was just a quiet boy of 15. I didn't engage in the affairs of others, but when the gods called, it was always an honor to fulfill one's duty. On the night of the third moon, Ixtaca and I were summoned to the mystic shaman at the Place of Many Tears, a cavernous underwater tunnel that leads to a hidden waterfall at the heart of Xochitl Mountain. This shaman was said not to deal with captives or criminals as sacrifices to the gods, but noble sacrifices of another nature. Upon entering the Place of Many Tears, my brother and I were embraced by the water's mighty rumbling. The mountain's deafening tears silenced songbirds and purring jaguars. Even the earth shook in awe. "Sons of Tenuk and Citlali, you have arrived," the shaman said, his words cutting through the water's rumbles. He sat beside a mountain of human skulls, pecked clean by the nearby ravens, no doubt. The shaman's frail body and leathery skin were adorned in magnificent green feathers and painted black stripes that swept his eyes. He was blind, and even amongst the pile of death beside him, it was a perfumed cloud of flowers that sailed on the wind, masking the blood or rotten flesh. The gods are waiting. My brother and I both bow our heads, Ixtaca still as stone. I shivered from the cold, still sopping wet. Knowing my face, fear didn't materialize, but I felt its fangs deep in my heart. The gods have chosen you for a sacrifice, but we must first determine who is most worthy to be delivered to the gods. Elder brother, hunt and bring me the pelt and claws of a wolf. Younger brother, hunt and bring me the pelt and fangs of a jaguar. Do not fail us. He brought a cactus needle and pierced the flesh of his palm. The crow's wings at his eyes soared to the seven skies. The shaman muttered, "You have until sunrise, my sons. Be swift." "It is an honor to serve the gods," my brother said, bowing. I saw the sadness in my mother's eyes as he turned to me, signaling that I pay my respects. "Yes, the greatest honor," I added, my voice suddenly unsure of everything in the world but one thing. My brother was the greatest man who ever lived. Ixtaca's journey led him deep into the wilds, where he pursued a formidable wolf. I followed him, keeping a distance, knowing my battle would reveal itself when the time came. Deep in the forests, I could no longer see the edge of No Tomorrow. The wolf's growls reverberated as if the earth's hunger was known to all. Its silver eyes locked onto Ichtaka's form, like twin moons in the dark. Determined, I watched as he squared off against this beast that went silent immediately after awakening the seven skies. I felt my brother's heart pounding, cutting through the rush of relentless rain. Ichtaka was terribly brave and even more stupid, I thought. To prove my worth, I will battle free of weapons. I will fight with all my heart, he said. Sure enough, my brother's obsidian blade and hatchet plopped into the muddy ground. His calves flexed in the rain as he dug his feet further into the soft sediment. The wolf lowered its gaze, growling. The fangs of fear clamped my heart tighter. "Ichtaka," I yelled, my voice too weak to carry far in the rain. "Please do not die, brother. Your life is too precious." He ignored me. His eyes locked on the wolf's. Live to die another day. I knew it to be a betrayal and dishonor of the gods to back down now, but I was only human. Surely the gods could understand that. The wolf lunged at Ichtaka, snapping its jaws wildly. My brother stood sturdy as the walls of Tenochtitlan themselves, his shoulders and arms rigid as he grappled with the beast. When Ichtaka grit his teeth in his face, I saw my father raging in defiance, and I saw my mother shut her eyes to the beastly things lashing at her. Ichtaka slipped in the mud, and the wolf nipped at his neck, but just as swiftly, my brother redirected the wolf's own power against it, twisting the mass of soaked fur into the ground head first. They both snarled, gasping for air as they rolled in the rain. Caked with mud, the wolf ravaged against the forces of nature, but my brother was fiercer, stronger. In the thick mud, Ichtaka found his arms wrapped around the wolf's neck, and just when I thought it was over, the black jaguar, cloaked in night, snuck up from behind me. It roared like thunder, sending the hair on my neck hailing to the seven skies. Without another thought, I swiped my brother's obsidian blade and hatchet. Light on my toes, I ventured deep into the heart of the jungle, away from my brother who was still fighting his own battle. I was swift, my senses on high alert. The scent of damp earth mingled with the rain. It was everywhere. It was everything. And I knew I couldn't smell jaguar, nor could jaguar smell me. In the dead of night, in the pouring rain, I knew if I could mask my breaths under the rolling thunder, there would be no sign of me. It'd be as if I never existed. When I lost jaguar, I hid behind the trunk of a tree, feeling the grooves carefully for any markings I had made earlier that day. No, not this one. I wasn't strong like Ichtaka, nor as brave, but I wouldn't be a candidate to be delivered to the gods if I didn't have something comparable to my brother's strength. 3 trunks later, my fingers traced the bark of a trunk marked with an X. Here, I gasped in disbelief. My trap was here. 3 paces before me was a pit with 20 spears jutting upward at the bottom, laced with viper venom. The trap masked with moss, leaves, and other things. But then, any hopes of a strategic battle died as the pouring rain ceased. It was suddenly quiet. Too quiet. The morning sun pierced through the muddy clouds in the seven skies. My heart sank as I was no longer invisible. The gods could see my shame, clear as day. Jaguar's growls shook the earth at my feet. His amber eyes, like twin suns, gleaming with intrigue. He slinked through dense jungle greens, shimmering black like an obsidian monster. Its muscles shifted powerfully beneath its fur coat as it stepped forward, then paused. Jaguar saw me as an equal. I followed suit, matching one step, obsidian blade in one hand, hatchet in the other. Then, before it could move again, I stepped just before the edge of my trap. The gods are mocking me. I heard raven crows from above, and the fangs of fear ensnared my heart in totality. My foot dipped in water, never touching solid ground, and I retreated. My pit of spears had become a pool of murky water from the abundance of rainfall. It was useless now, and I was as good as dead. Hot tears spilled furiously down my face. Jaguar engaged with unwavering resolve, and in that moment, without another thought, I brought my arms up to shield my neck, blades out. It lunged at me, stupid beast. It plunged into the pit, nowhere close to being the victim of the venomous spears at the bottom. But overwhelming surprise erupted from the black beast's gaze. I heaved the hatchet with all my might. I won't run. I won't hide. The hatchet lodged into its neck. Jaguar roared straight into the seven skies, and I roared back. It plopped out of the pool, a sopping mess, and I jammed my blade into one of its eyes. There was a squelching pop that gave me tremendous joy, and I felt the fangs of fear freed from my heart. Jaguar shrieked violently. I thought my eardrums would explode. Distracted, its claws lashed at my chest and I fell back. Flat on my back, it lunged again, blood pouring down its face and neck. I held the obsidian blade before me, shielding my neck for dear life. The black beast was sluggish. I knew it. As its jaws drew near, its hot breath that reeked of rabbit and rotten flesh lifted my hair. I snatched my brother's hatchet from its throat and slashed its neck again. Blood rained down my face, my arms, my chest. Was I drowning in the thick of red? With the obsidian blade, I slashed wildly at its face, fearful of its fangs, blinded by blood. But I hit my mark. Another squelching pop ruptured. I had blinded the beast, and it bled out all over me. Its mountainous body lay limp. With the weight of this magnificent beast sprawled over me, I almost suffocated as my lungs ravaged for sips of air. I slid out from under the beast with a charged grunt, bloody knife still in hand. Flat on my back, the sun's light shone on me as I gasped greedily for air. Footsteps approached, and I rose like lightning, my raggedy body drenched in jaguar blood and the tears of the seven skies. I was ready for absolutely anything. I dropped my guard when I saw Iktaka carrying the dead wolf over his shoulders like a warrior's cloak. He laughed, tossing his bested beast to the ground, and ran to hug me so fiercely, I thought another jaguar had tackled me. "The sun is risen, brother. We must meet at the place of many tears. Destiny awaits," he said. With pelts draped over our shoulders, he in wolf's clothing and I in jaguar, we met once more, the weight of our destiny heavy upon us. A shared understanding pulsed between us, and I shone with pride. In the eyes of the gods, I was equal to my elder brother, the man with my father's face and mother's eyes. When he smiled at me, I felt our family whole again. Iktaka presented the wolf pelt and the wolf claws to the shaman. I presented the jaguar pelt and the jaguar fangs. "Both elder brother and younger brother are victorious, it seems," called the shaman, his voice itching with worry. "Both of you were not to return. This was not foreseen." The shaman lifted another cactus needle and pricked his palm. "The gods still demand the greatest sacrifice. It cannot be helped. Iktaka, bring me your brother's eyes, dead or alive." I saw my brother's breath stolen by the shaman's words. I saw our mother's tears. "Younger brother, bring me your brother's eyes," shaman shouted. "Dead or alive, are the gods not clear?" "It is the greatest honor," my brother choked on his words, "to serve the gods." Shaman brought a hollowed gourd to his lips and drank in their honor. "The fangs of fear you feel clamped onto your heart. There is no sacrifice greater than love." Shaman tossed 2 obsidian daggers, one to each of us. "This is love." Tears spilled down my face, faster than jaguar could ever make them fall. Without another thought, I yelled, cutting through the rumbling water of the place of many tears. My voice pierced the edge of no tomorrow. "No, it's not. The gods are wrong. I don't want to die. I don't want to kill you, brother. The gods are wrong." Iktaka lifted the obsidian dagger, and I saw our father raise it at me. I saw our mother hold her gaze steady, never shielding her eyes. In the air, I couldn't tell the difference between the taste of death and the perfumed flowers. He pounded me, my face, my chest, my heart. Brother was stronger than wolf and jaguar. His fists raged like thunder. I could feel the swelling rise beneath my skin, the notches of black and blue and violet materializing where my red skin sat on my wiry frame. I didn't fight him. I wasn't afraid of raising my blade at his throat. No, Iktaka was too strong, too fast, faster than I could see or think. My brother truly was the greatest man who ever lived. He pinned me to the ground, dagger at my throat. He didn't cut me on purpose. I knew that. My greedy breaths guided the edge of the blade into the skin of my throat. "It's been decided," muttered to me and only me. Beneath the rushing waters of the place of no tears, beneath the blanket of perfumed flowers masking the scent of death, beneath the peak of the edge of no tomorrow, the gods could not hear us. For a moment, it was as if we did not exist. "I am the greatest sacrifice," Iktaka muttered. "What?" Still on top of me, Iktaka jammed the obsidian dagger into his eye socket. It rained crimson over me. There was no squelch or pop as when I had ruptured Jaguar's eyes. My brother was meticulous. Peeking through my hands, I saw my father rip out our mother's eye. She shed tears of scarlet. Iktaka offered me his eye in the palm of his hand. "Now, brother, take the other," he whispered daringly. "This is love. This is sacrifice." Without another thought, I cried, "You've given me your right eye, brother. Please take my left." I smiled faintly. "I would give it to you myself, but you've left my arms useless." We both laughed like when we were boys, and the happy sounds turned sour as we cried. Iktaka jammed his fingers in my left eye, spreading apart my eyelids far past where they would naturally open. I did not feel the fangs of fear nipping at my heart. I felt warm again as the last that eye had ever seen was my family whole again,